Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Nick Horten. Today I thought we'd take a look at the Benelli Super Black Eagle 2, not the latest model, its predecessor, the Mark II. This is my own personal gun, and I thought that we'd take a look through some of the slight mods that I've made to it to better suit the purposes that I put it to. Starting at the back end, most of you who are familiar with Benellis know that they come with 2 or 3 different thicknesses of recoil pad, and it is a really nice soft pad that's slippery against your clothing. But you'll notice that I have an additional insert that fits in between the stock Benelli extension pad and the end of the stock. I'm not going to try and take it off because it's actually quite a close fit, but this is an extender which, for people like me, I'm 6'4" on a good day, is an absolute godsend. Benelli's for many years made guns for midgets with an average stock length, I think, of about 13 3/4, 14 inches thereabouts. But with this extender and one of the alternative pads, I can take, as is the case with this gun, I can take it out to a much more comfortable 15 1/4 inches. This rubber spacer is available if you look on YouTube. Put Benelli stock lengthener into the search engine. It will come up with a clip with links to the UK vendor of that product. If you're slightly above average height, I absolutely recommend that. It's a godsend. The remainder of the stock contains these chevrons which allegedly allow the stock to flex. Never been convinced that that actually serves any purpose. There's a cheek piece which also is quite soft, and that helps to reduce the felt recoil on the gun, which, because it weighs in at about 7.5 pounds with a 3.5 inch chambered gun, frankly is a bit lively. But all of these components combined help to tame the recoil and make it, for me, an absolute pleasure to shoot. Whilst we're still looking at the stock, and the stock itself contains the shims to adjust drop and cast, you'll see that mine is fitted with a sling swivel, to which I've added my own shoulder strap. An absolute godsend for the wildfowler and certainly the pigeon shooter as well. Rather than put the gun down into wet and marshy ground, you can just sling it over your back and keep it where it's safe and sound and you know where it is all the time. It also avoids one of the other pitfalls of owning a camouflaged gun like this one, which is that if you put it on the ground, I've actually lost this one for almost 40 minutes. Much like many modern semi-automatics today, it comes with almost all of the metal parts coated in plastic of some sort. This is one of the better finishes that's applied to the Benelli. There's a few wear marks on mine, but generally speaking, this finish doesn't come off in the way that some on cheaper guns seems to do. One of the things that Benelli was, the rotating bolt head that Benelli used was originally developed by Breeder quite some long time ago, but it's become synonymous with Benelli, and it seems to ensure that the lock-up between the bolt and the barrel is second to none. A quick moment to look at one of the slight disadvantages of the rotating bolt head, which is this. If I close the bolt and don't allow it to slam shut, you'll see that it stays slightly out of battery, which means that it's not locked in place, and were I to pull the trigger now, the gun would not go off, hence the Benelli click. So what Benelli's did was they went away and redesigned the internals, rearranged some of the driving springs to make sure that that didn't happen. Once you know that it exists, it's easy to manage. You probably noticed that I've got this rather curious looking stainless steel gizmo, which is tucked in just behind the fore end and extends across to cover the button that releases the bolt carrier. And one of the reasons that I invested in one of these, and it was horrendously expensive for a simple piece of spring steel. And having seen one for myself, I think I would now probably be inclined to go away and make one for myself. But the button on all of this model Benelli is very small, and I won't say that it's sharp, but if particularly you're in a pigeon hide having a heavy day, continually having to keep pressing that button can become quite unpleasant on your thumb. I took a Dremel to the insides here to make sure that it was recessed and this fits in nice and neatly, but you've now got the whole of this surface area, which, if you press it, closes the bolt, and because it's a flat, smooth surface, there's no discomfort to your thumb. Moving on, 3.5-inch chamber. I think by now the 3.5-inch chambered gun is fairly universal, particularly within the semi-automatic market. A conventional magazine tube hidden underneath the forend. And I wonder if perhaps, since we've talked about bolts and trigger assemblies and magazine tubes, those are all the working parts of a semi-automatic gun which can go wrong. Things can break, but that's a separate issue from having a malfunction on your semi-automatic brought about by dirt inside the action. And I've often been surprised by, in conversations with other semi-auto users, and I've said to them, when did you last, out of curiosity, take out the entire trigger mechanism or strip down the magazine tube to remove the plastic stop inside and the spring itself? Both jobs, which on the majority of semi-automatics are actually quite straightforward, only to be told, well, I've never done it because I don't know how to. Which is why, for me, one of the most important pieces of kit that comes with your new semi-automatic is this, the owner's manual. And I thoroughly recommend that before you start playing around with the gun, you read it, you understand it, and you familiarise yourself with how to strip and clean the gun right down to the bottom of the strip and clean, and you can't go any further. It's also worth mentioning with Benellis, and a lot of people don't realise this at all because they've never read the manual, the correct way to load the older Benellis, which the ones that are prone to the click, is this. Close the bolt and the gun is loaded with 2 cartridges up the magazine spout. You then pull back on the cocking handle. I'll demonstrate with the snap cap. Just drop a cartridge inside and let it go, so that the very last thing you do is to slam that breech shut, which cures the problem of the Benelli click. A lot of people don't know that. Whilst I'm operating the breech of the gun, it might be worth showing you this little trick. I did this, in fact, last season, and it comes in very handy. Normally, you would employ the method of loading it that I demonstrated a moment ago. But if you've emptied the gun and you've still, in my case, it was, again, Canada geese, I'd managed to bag 2 or 3, and there was a 4th still within easy range. Now, obviously, I didn't want to go through the performance that I've just described to you. So the way that you can speed load the chamber of a Benelli is to drop in the cartridge and just touch the back of the cartridge, and away she goes. It slams shut, the bolt is engaged, the gun has instantly got a single cartridge in it, which I discharged at said Canada Goose and missed it royally. It's worth just taking a look at the end of the barrel, where I have a new Muller passing. Never liked the grammar of that, but it's a derivation of the American pass shooting. This is a half choke, and I will report back on the efficacy of this in due course. Unfortunately, it didn't arrive until the season was over. When it did arrive, I had COVID, so it's not seen any action, but it comes extremely well recommended, and I'm really looking forward to putting it to good use. Never had a problem with this gun. It's always functioned. They are notorious for not liking 65mm or 70mm light-loaded cartridges, which don't generate enough oomph to cycle the inertia action. I've actually found that mine works certainly down to a 28. 24s might be pushing it a bit. It will function all day long with 28 gram lead loads. I thoroughly recommend it. I can't fault it in any way, shape or form, which is why I'm sticking with the SBE2 rather than making the jump up to the SBE3. But to the best of my recollection, I've had this gun since 2007, so it's got a few years under its belt. It's had some significantly heavy use. In the past, I used to do, simply because I had more of it available, I used to do a lot more pigeon shooting than I do at the moment. And it's had many, many thousands of lead cartridges through it and a significant number of steel cartridges in both the 70mm and 3.5 inch format. It's never let me down. I've always been pleased with the way in which the gun has performed and the way that it's patterned. And I know I'm eulogising this with nothing in return from the importers, but I do believe that if you're going to invest in a semi-automatic, you might as well get what is probably the best one on the market at the moment. And in my humble opinion, it's this, the Benelli SBE2. It's not a cheap gun, regrettably. I'm not entirely sure what the market price is at the moment, but it's right up the top end of the semi-automatics. But if you get the same sort of service from an SBE2 that you might invest in, I think you will agree that it's been money well spent.